specialist in the field of forensic psychiatry.
And what education did you have to become a professional forensics psychiatrist?
Well, I was born and raised in Armadillo, so of course I went through all the years of high school and graduated my diploma, graduated at the top of my class there. I also went to college here in Armadillo, and I graduated with a bachelor's in biology and a minor in chemistry. Then I continued on to medical school, again, here in Armadillo. Once I graduated from there, I moved to Dallas and did my residency in psychiatry there. And I focused my programming and my studies in Dallas on forensic psychiatry. Specifically, I would analyze patients who were using the insanity defense. And after that, after I graduated from there with my degree, I've since then worked in this field and focused in this field.
Have you done any research in the field of psychiatry?
Absolutely. I've done loads of research. I wrote a treatise on a specific topic within the field of forensic psychiatry, which is the MMPI.
Could you tell us a little bit about what an MMPI actually is?
The MMPI stands for the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. It is basically a series of questions that's used as a tool to analyze an individual's capacity to understand the difference between right and wrong and whether or not they would be capable of testifying at trial in their own defense. It is the most frequently used test within forensic psychiatry.
Dr. Eric Johnson, have you been accepted by the court as an expert in forensic psychiatry before?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got 10 years of experience under my belt.
Your Honor, at this time I'd like to proffer the witness, Dr. Johnson, as an expert in the subject matter of forensic psychiatry. There's no objection, Your Honor.
And she shall be so received.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Johnson, how did you become involved in this particular case?
I was retained to evaluate the defendant who is here today and to determine whether or not, it's my understanding that he was insane, and to determine whether or not he was legitimately insane as he's claiming.
Were you compensated for that?
Yes.
Has your being compensated had any impact on your opinion?
Objection, improper bolstering. Pursuant to Rule 608, the evidence or testimony that seeks to increase in the eyes of the jury a witness's credibility and veracity is improper unless that veracity has been challenged.
Your Honor, at this point in time, I would state that I'm not bolstering her opinion. I'm simply clarifying her veracity and her credibility at this point in time. At this point in time, I've elicited whether the witness has been compensated for her time and her involvement in this particular case, and I'm asking, and the questions are geared at determining what impact that compensation had on her veracity and her credibility.
The entire purpose being to bolster her opinion to the jury and letting them know that her compensation in no way affected her testimony. That is the definition of improper bolstering, Your Honor, and it's prohibited by Rule 608.
I think the jury can determine whether or not compensation would affect the good doctor's testimony today. I will allow the admission of the fact that she is being paid. I will strike any additional testimony regarding whether she believes that affects her today.
Thank you.
Motion to strike any testimony that was elicited regarding the effect of marijuana.
That's fine.
What did you review to perform your evaluation, Mr. Draft?
I mean, for one thing, I'm an expert. I'm highly trained. I don't need to really review anything in order to determine whether or not someone's insane. But I did conduct tests of the defendant, Mr. Draft. In addition to that, I conducted over 10 hours worth of personal interviews of him, and I had also conducted other tests to evaluate his competency.
Let the record reflect that I'm showing the witness who was previously entered as State's Exhibit 3.
It's Exhibit 6, Your Honor.
Exhibit 6.
Your Honor, it's been pre-marked for identification purposes only as Exhibit 6, but it was entered as State's Exhibit 3.
Right.
It was the third exhibit entered. It was entered as Exhibit 6, Your Honor. It's semantic. Well, no objection.
Do you recognize this?
Absolutely.
And what do you recognize it to be?
Those are the results of the MMPI exam that I performed for John Draft.
Permission for the witness to step down and interact with the demonstrative, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I take my notes with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Ms. Johnson, could you please describe for the jury what we see here?
Sure. The MMPI is comprised of multiple different categories that you use to evaluate someone's competency. In addition, there are also categories to the right, which essentially evaluates the reliability and the consistency of the MMPI. If you look at this particular MMPI, John Draft scored particularly high on the areas 6, 7, and 8. That is an inverted V. We also call that in my field the psychotic V. Particularly indicates that someone lacks competency or the ability to differentiate between right and wrong. 6, where he scored a 75, is the paranoia scale. And what that basically indicates is that John Draft has an inability to trust and has tendencies to be hostile. 7, where he scored an 85, is the psychosynthia scale. That shows that John Draft has a propensity to have anxiety and impulsive reactions and an inability to control his impulsive reactions.
Your Honor, improper character evidence?
Does the state wish to be heard on that?
I would need some clarity on what counsel is exactly saying is improper character evidence.
I'm sorry, the state.
The witness elicited testimony indicating that the defendant would have a propensity to act in a way that was, the exact wording of it, but impulsively. This is impermissible under Rule 404 because it's offered to show conformity with that character.
Your Honor, the witness has identified what each scale has, which each scale has to offer her opinion, and has stated what each scale's level would indicate to her when reviewing this. In no way, shape, or form has she elicited character information from Mr. Draft. She has merely stated someone exhibiting these particular qualities as shown on the MMPI would exhibit these particular characteristics.
Our defense counsel is intended to shoehorn in through the use of numbers by saying that his high score indicates that he has a propensity for something, to now shoehorn in improper character evidence to show, that is offered for propensity. That's strictly forbidden by Rule 404.
Course indulgence.
No, every time I say it,
I'm going to overrule the state's objection. I'm going to end the sentence.
Thank you. May continue, Doctor.
Thank you. So just to recap, 7 is the psychosynthia scale, and that shows a tendency or basically the degree to which someone might be anxious or have impulsive reactions. Category 8, which John Draft also scored very high on, that's a 74. That's the schizophrenic scale, and what that shows is that John Draft has poor perception. He experiences things emotionally, cognitively, physically in a very odd, unusual way. And essentially, when you look at his high scoring on this scale, the inverted V, it would show that an individual who scored in this manner would suffer from disorders, delusions,
Objection, improper opinion, lack of foundation.
She is an expert.
I apologize, Your Honor, lack of foundation. There's been no testimony listed that this is basically this conclusion that the witness has just stated is based on sufficient foundation.
Your Honor, the witness has been introduced as an expert in forensic psychiatry and has presented adequate knowledge in addition to the fact that she's written in the past and testified today on the stand as to what an MMPI results is capable of showing and how to interpret it. I believe this is in the realm of her expertise, and appropriate foundation has already been laid.
Has she talked about how long she met with the defendant? Has there been testimony regarding that already?
She has testified that she met with the defendant on several times. There has not been a precise